All right, so I've seen a lot of videos on how to use Claude Code or like specific things like skills and subagents and all this kind of jazz, but I haven't seen many videos on someone implementing a project from start to end on a real life project. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. No BS. Basically everything that I've learned over thousands of hours over the last year, building projects for private equity firms, enterprises, and stuff for my SF poker club that I run. And that's actually the project that I'm going to show you in this video. So yeah, let's get right into it. So the most important thing you really need to understand at a high level about vibe coding is this. This is kind of what I think of. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. And that seems kind of like what vibe coding really is to me. So if you don't know, I run a poker club called sfpokerclub.com. We have in-person sessions like once or twice a month. And basically what I wanted to do was whenever we have a game, I wanted to create a seating chart. We play 3 different games inside of one night, 30 minutes each. And I want to maximize the total number of people interactions. I want to make sure that every table, there's a similar skill level of people. And I want to make sure that the gender ratio is pretty equal across all the tables. And so I want to be able to show that seating chart up on a screen while we're playing in the theme of my website. And that's kind of the project that I'm going to be showing in this video. So first, you've got to understand, like, what is the process of vibe coding? This is basically what I've come to. This is what I do for every project. The high level process is I brain dump. So I was a PM before. And what you would do when you're a PM is you write a PRD, but you don't really need to do that for vibe coding, at least for the size of projects that we're doing here. Basically what I do is I know what I want to build. And so I'll just brain dump that into a paragraph. Like I'm explaining it to an engineer or I'm explaining it to a friend, like what I want to build. So I'll brain dump all of that. I'll make sure that it's really clear. Sometimes what I'll do is that I'll use a prompt optimizer to clean it up because maybe I'm just dumping a lot of stuff that is gibberish and doesn't make sense or it's just all over the place. So a prompt optimizer can clean it up and make it more organized. For a third step, I'm an engineer, so it might be, maybe hard for somebody who doesn't have an engineering background or like a technical background to do this, but I'll basically think about what I'm building at a high level and break it down into its component pieces so that I can vibe code each of them. I think one thing that a lot of people do that I feel like is wrong is they'll try to one-shot an entire project with like one long-ass prompt and then just hope that the output is good. What I like to do is I'll think about what I'm trying to build. I'll break it down into the component pieces. Like for example, here I've written front-end, back-end, production deployment. And within each of these, you can imagine there's a lot of sub pieces, right? Within backend, there could be like your API endpoints, etc. And so for each of those pieces, I will vibe code something. And so I know at a high level, the architecture of what I'm building, I'll vibe code each of the pieces and then I'll put the pieces together. And that's how I like to vibe code. And the reason is because if you try to one-shot an entire project at once, it's going to be very hard for you to debug things. So when you break it down into the component pieces and you're only vibe coding one piece at a time, you're probably going to move much faster because you're going to have an understanding of what the whole project looks like, and you'll be able to debug a lot faster. You can use an LLM to help you with this if you don't have that technical background and you're not super familiar with this. LLMs are super useful, right? Like you don't know something, you can ask it, hey, what are the best practices here? And then finally, you implement and debug. And that's basically the high level process of vibe coding. You need to have like some understanding of what stack you're going to be using. And just, this is what I use. You don't need to understand these super deeply. Again, LLMs will help you understand all the fine grained details if you know how to ask questions and you know how to understand a project from a high level. But over all the projects that I've worked on, this is basically the stack that I've come to. So for my command line interface, that's what CLI stands for. I use Claude Code. What model do I use? I use Opus 4.5. You might want to change that. You might want to use Sonnet 4 because you might not be on the maximum plan like I am. I pay $200 a month for this. And so I'm okay with using Opus 4.5 because I know I'm probably not going to hit my limit, but you might be on the $20 a month plan. And so you have to think about that. But if you have the $200 a month plan, I would highly recommend you basically always use Opus 4.5. What MCPs do I use? I use Exa. That's basically the only MCP that's been useful to me so far. There are a couple other ones, but really for most projects, this is the only one that I use consistently. What skills do I use? Basically, the only skills that I found actually useful are the front end design skill that Anthropic has released themselves, and one called error analysis that will basically do a root cause analysis and debug something for you. And I use that a lot. What do I do for front end? So for front end, basically TypeScript, use bun, not npm, and then ShadCN for UI components. So I'll go into that later, but that's what I do for front end. For back end, TypeScript. But I like to use Python because I actually know Python a lot better than I know JavaScript and TypeScript. So I prefer to use Python, but I'll use TypeScript because I can ask the LLM to explain things to me. And Fast API for building APIs on Python, and then Hono for building APIs on TypeScript. And then for actually deploying these applications live, I'll use Vercel to host my front ends. I'll use Cloudflare for a lot of my backends, so Cloudflare workers and containers specifically. And then for a few projects, I'll use Modal. Modal is like a GPU provider essentially. And so for some projects I use them, but for this one we won't need it. But this is basically what I've come to as my stack after a lot of projects that I worked on. So this is really all you need to know in terms of the stack. So now let's get into the project. Again, I host poker nights. Let me show you the website. So sfpokerclub.com. So this is the website. So I host this like once or twice a month. These are some pictures from past events we've had. This is at the Salesforce Tower. This is at a startup called MindsDB. And yeah, we usually have like 50, 60 people that come. And so, you know, it's a very simple landing page, but what I want to do is when I have 50 or 60 people coming, I want to be able to make sure that at every table, again, that we have a good gender distribution across the tables. We are making sure that across the 3 games that, you know, we're making sure that people can meet a lot of people during a night, and that we are making sure that the skill levels at each table are pretty evenly matched, because the poker nights that I host are generally poker night for dummies. That's how it's branded. And so I want to make sure that, you know, these aren't super serious games, that we have a good mix of experienced people and inexperienced people at each table, so that the experienced people can teach the inexperienced ones and make sure that the game's going on correctly. So that's basically the project that I wanted. And this is kind of the outcome that I have so far. I mean, it's still a work in progress, but this is basically what we're going to be building. So you can see this is the seating chart. So we have all the tables with all the different people. And then we also have a timer because for each game, we basically play for 30 minutes. And as soon as everyone's seated, I start the timer, and that's basically it. So this is the project that we're going to be doing. And you can see also that this is in sort of the theme of my landing page. But anyway, let's get back. So let's get into the requirements a little bit. So the project is poker night seating charts. So basically the first requirement is that I need to build an algorithm that can build the seating chart. Step number 2 is I need to build the front end that I can actually display onto the projector that people can look at, the thing that you just saw. So for writing the algorithm, what does the algorithm need to do? So I use Luma for capturing signups and for checking people in. So as soon as people check in, I need to basically run the list of people who checked in through the algorithm. And I need to make sure that, again, I'm going to say it again, that at every table, there's a good ratio of men and women at each table, that we control for the number of players per table. So if, for example, we have 50 people, you know, if we only have access to 7 tables, then I want to do 50 divided by 7. And, you know, maybe we want around 7 people per table. But sometimes maybe we want 6 people per table if we have access to more tables, just because it makes for a more intimate poker night. We want to balance the experience levels of players per game, like I mentioned before. And we want to make sure that there's at least one experienced dealer per table, and that the excess dealers are distributed evenly. Sometimes, you know, there might be 10 people who are interested in being dealers, but we only have 6 tables. So we only need 6 dealers per table. And then we want to make sure that the last 4 are evenly distributed across all the tables, so that so one table doesn't just become all dealers. For the second part, for the front end, I want to make sure that I can show the seating charts that we created through the algorithm to people who are at the game night, so they can see it clearly and that it matches my website's theme. That's kind of the one big requirement. The other one is that it's big enough for people to see from far away. So let's get right into this. One more thing before I get into the project. When I build projects now, I use this open source project that Toby from Spotify, the CEO of Spotify, he built. It's called Try. I basically use this because I build so many projects now that I want an easy way to find them. And I highly recommend this. This is like a really good way to search for projects inside your terminal. So let's get started. All right, so I'm going to create a new one. So you can see actually, if I hit try, you'll see that my front end project or my poker project is in SF Poker Club invitees merge. So I have two different projects actually. So poker seating chart, this is the front end project. So you can see that we have the CSV of instructors, and then we have Python. So this is basically setting up, this is the project that sets up the seating chart. And then if we go back, you can see in this, we actually set up the seating chart. So the algorithm is in one of these files. Yeah, so the algorithm is in two separate files. So first, what we do is we pre-process the Luma. So from Luma, I basically download a CSV of the people who checked in, and then we pre-process that CSV, and then we run it through the algorithm. The algorithm is in poker CSV output.py. So that's what these two files do. And then the front end project is in poker seating display. So this is, so let's go poker seating display. You can see this is like a Next.js process, Next.js project that will display the seating chart on the Vercel deployed application. So that's what that looks like. And now I'm going to build this from scratch. All right. So when you build a project with try, you just hit try and then you give it a name. So I'm going to do poker night. Oh, I'm already inside of a project. Let me get out of this project first. All right. So try, let's call it poker video demo. So when you do that, because that doesn't already exist, we create new. And then now we're inside of a project and I will open it up in Cursor. So Cursor period opens up this directory inside of Cursor. Now, you don't need to use Cursor. You can just use VS Code. I am just kind of like stuck in my ways because every once in a while I will use the sidebar, but I almost never use it, to be honest, anymore. Basically just use the terminals. So close this and let's open up the terminal. And actually what I do is I open up two terminals because when I'm really vibe coding like bigger projects, I'll have Codex open on the right side, OpenAI's CLI, and I'll have Claude Code open up on the left one because sometimes the Codex model is just better at debugging than Claude. But recently, actually, within the last like couple of weeks, I have mostly been using Claude Code, but that's besides the point. So let's open up Claude Code. So just hit Claude. I'm going to assume you already have it downloaded. I might do a video in the future where I will give you a tutorial on this, but for now, I'm just going to assume that you have this. So say yes, and let's get started. So I want to first implement the algorithm, right? What I will do is, since I already wrote the context for what I want, I'll kind of copy this and I'll just paste it in. And I'll make sure that we're in plan mode. Plan mode is very important that you do this because it will think a lot before it actually implements something. So to do plan mode, you can either hit /plan to enable it, which is in the newest version of the Claude Code CLI, or you can hit Shift Tab and do that twice, and then you see plan mode in the bottom. So now that we're in plan mode, I will paste this in. And actually, I take that back. So before I do this, what I want to do is I want to actually give it the CSV so that it can read the CSV when it's writing this algorithm. So let me go to Luma. Let me download an example CSV. All right, so here's a poker night that we had 90 people sign up to. Go to manage registration, go to guests, and I'll just download as CSV. So now we have the CSV. Let me just rename it and move it into our directory, video, raw, Luma, CSV. All right, I'll move that here. So the command for that is mv. So it's in my downloads and I called it, what did I call it again? Test video, and then move that to this directory. Now you can see the CSV here. And now let's paste that prompt in. And let me just add at the end, the original list of people are from the CSV. And the way that you can tag a file inside of a directory is with the @ symbol. So @test raw video raw luma csv.csv. All right, so let's just see what this does. Hit enter and it'll start running. So a cool thing that you can do is you can see what it's thinking by doing Control-O, Control-T maybe. I'm forgetting. Okay, so it's like it read the CSV and it says, I now understand the data structure the CSV has, blah, blah, blah. And this is really cool. So when you do plan mode, it uses a tool called the Ask User Question tool, I think is what it's called. And it'll basically clarify things with you so that it makes sure that it understands everything you really want in this project. So first question that it's asking me is, what is the ideal number of players per table and what are the acceptable min-max ranges? So I want to specify exact numbers. So I'll give it option 3. Should players be shuffled between tables for each of the 3 games or stay at the same table? So I want people to shuffle tables. Well, who qualifies as a dealer? Should it be only experienced players who said yes to teaching, or can I can hold my own players can also be dealers? So there's 2 ways to do this. And what I did for the last one was basically anyone who was either experienced or I can hold my own, I just put them in a list as, hey, like these people should be eligible to be dealers, because not everyone responds to me when I email them asking if they want to be a dealer. So I just kind of volunteer them. So I'll say experience plus yes only. What programming language should the algorithm be written in? I'm going to use Python because I know Python and this is just a script. So I think that's fine. And submit answers. What specific table size constraints do you want? Example, minimum 6, maximum 9, prefer 8 per table. I'll just say I want to specify numbers, or maybe I'll type it in. So the 4th option is you can type something. So I'll say I should be able to control how many people per table with an argument to the seating chart script. When you get past one line, the rest of it kind of gets hidden, which is just kind of a bug, I guess, of Claude Code right now. They'll probably fix this in the future, but hit enter, and then you can see the whole thing. I should be able to control how many people per table with an argument to the seating chart script. So what that means is, like, when you write a Python script, you can do like dash, people per table, and you can specify a number. So I could say 3, I could say 6, I could say 8, and it should be able to dynamically update that. So now it says, hey, I have all the requirements I need. Let me write the plan. And I'll show you what these plans look like. But it writes a plan and then it implements the plan with like a to-do list. And it'll ask you, okay, hey, I wrote the plan. Are you okay with this? And so I'll just take a cursory look at it just to make sure that high level it makes sense. Otherwise, I'll tell it to like make updates. So let's look at this. So here's Claude's plan. Create a Python script that generates balanced seating charts for 3 poker games per night, optimizing for gender balance, experience level distribution, and dealer coverage. Input is the Luma CSV export with guest registration data. Output is 3 separate seating charts, 1 per game. Shuffled between games. Table size configurable via command line argument. Yep. Dealer qualification, experienced players who answered yes to teaching. That might be wrong, but let's see. Parse the CSV, categorize the players, gender categories, dealer status, and teaching answer yes. Okay, so you can see that in the plan, it actually did not take into account what I told it earlier, where I wanted to automatically make dealers either people who are experienced or have, say, I can hold my own. So I will actually update this plan with that feedback. So algorithm design, determine table count, dealer distribution, identify all dealers, blah, 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 experience balancing, gender balancing. Okay, I'll just, assume that it knows what it's doing there, generate 3 different seatings, output format. Okay, the other thing is I want to make sure that the output is in a CSV format so that I can just upload the output CSV into the front end and it'll automatically generate the seating chart. So there's 2 different updates that I want to make to this plan that I can see here. So let's see. Dealers, potential dealers should be anyone with experience, or I can hold my own as experience level. Also, make the output a CSV because I want to upload the output CSV to a front end where I can display the seating chart to the players. So I give it some context for why I want a CSV as an output, because that's what I would do as a PM. I would give the context for why I'm trying to do something to the engineers. Hopefully when it has the context, it'll be able to build a better solution for me. So you can see here, it updated part of the plan. All right, so let's look at this updated plan. All right, requirements, Luma CSV export with guest registration data, 3 separate seating charts, table size, command line argument, dealer qualification experienced, or I can hold my own players who answered yes to teaching. I want to update that so that they don't have to say yes to teaching. CSV filter players, categorize players, gender categories, algorithm design, okay, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not going to look at that much because I'll show you what I'll do once it actually implements the algorithm. I'm going to have it validate the algorithm that it wrote. Okay, CSV output is going to be, there's going to be a column with which game you're at, which table you're at, which seat you're at, your name, an is dealer flag, experience level and gender. Okay. And then I'll show you some statistics, and here's the file structure. Okay. So let's just update what it said here. I don't care if people said yes to teaching, to be qualified to be a dealer. So you can see you want to make sure that the plan is good, because if the plan is not good, then it's going to implement something bad. So this is a really good, this is basically you building a PRD. All right. Hopefully this is the last time. Categorize players. No. All right. Dealer qualification experienced, or I can hold my own experience level. Yeah. So that's all I care about. Of teaching preference. And one other thing that I want this to do is I want it to use a package manager called UV. This is something I've been new to. I used to use something called Miniconda, and basically that's like a virtual environment so that all the external packages that has to import inside of a Python file, it would be inside of a virtual environment using Miniconda. UV is like a newer version of basically that. And so I wanted to use that. So I'll basically just say, make sure that we are using UV as the virtual environment. All right. Yep. Regardless, teaching preference. That's what I cared about. Filter to only players with non-empty checked in at. So it's only going to check people who filtered or who are checked in. So you can see that it automatically came up with that insight. I didn't have to tell it that in the CSV, this flag has to be checked for somebody to be qualified to be part of this algorithm. It automatically did that. All right, print the summary stats, project setup using UV. Okay, so it's going to make sure we're using UV. All right, I think this is good enough. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to hit yes and auto accept edits. So I don't do this for like bash commands. I'm afraid of what it will do. So for things like this, I will manually say yes or no to these. UV run Python seating chart. All right, so it seems like it's running a test. So I'll say yes. So you can see it ran it, and then it found that there's some duplicate entries and that there's some empty fields. So it's going to try to fix that. Well, what is it doing? UV run panda. So it's writing a Python script to do what? Let me verify there's no duplicate entries in the source data. Okay, so that it's verifying there's no duplicate entries. Total checked in entries, unique names, which means that there's no duplicates. Okay. You can see sometimes I don't even know what it's doing, and I'll just say, okay, just continue until you're done doing this. I will run a couple tests. I'll look at the outputs, and then, we'll take it from there. This is kind of my vibe coding process. Looks like it found a bug inside of part of the algorithm. The gender balancing function continues iterating after a successful swap, but the loop variables still reference old values, and so that's why we're seeing duplicates. So what it's saying is that we don't want duplicate entries in a game's seating chart, because again, there's 3 different seating charts, 1 per game. You want to make sure that every single game includes every single person. This is actually an issue that I had at the last poker night that we had. I was setting up the seating chart, and for some reason, every game, there were some people that were not included in the seating chart. And so I guess it was a slightly different issue, but basically the reason was because I was telling it that, hey, I want to make sure that every table has a certain number of people. And so if that number if the total number of people was not evenly divisible by that, then like a certain number of people would be excluded from the list for every single game. And so I didn't realize that until after that night. And so I updated the algorithm to fix that. So you can see sometimes errors like this pop up. Okay. Looks like it's done. The seating chart algorithm is complete and tested. Here's a summary of what was built. Seating chart.py, a Python script that generates balanced poker seating charts. This is how you run it. So you do UV run Python seating chart.py. You give it the input CSV. You just tell it how many people you want per table, and then you give it the output CSV name. Example. All right. Options. Okay. Filters checked in players only. Okay. There's a couple things that I want to check. So the first thing is I want it to basically validate the algorithm that I wrote. I took an algorithms class in college, and so I know there is an algorithm that it should be using to balance these 3 things. And so I want it to basically validate the implementation that it took. I want to do it from the perspective of an algorithms professor. And so I'll have it validate that and update from an algorithms professor's perspective of what the best approach is to solve this problem. And I'll update the algorithm to do that. And then the other thing is I wanted to automatically change the output name to basically include the date-output.csv so that I don't have to give it an output name every single time. I'm only going to run it once per poker night, and poker night only happens one time that night. So I wanted to automatically do that as a default. I don't want to always have to give it the output name. So those are two things I want to change, or two things I want to do. So step number one, I want to validate the algorithm. So to make sure we're still in plan mode, so Shift Tab, and let's say validate the algorithmic approach from an algorithms/data structure professors from an algorithms data structure perspective. Update the algorithm using the best university algorithm/data structures perspective. Also, one thing that recently changed with this version of Claude Code that I always used to do is I always used to end my prompts with ultrathink. And you can see that it changed the colors of that because this was kind of a keyword. Basically, this would make sure that it does extra thinking when it runs through a prompt. But now it does this by default, so you don't have to type that in anymore. So let's go enter. One other thing that you want to keep in mind is this context window. So you can see that so far it's been used 49%. So the more that it's used, the dumber the model is going to get in a session. So once you get to a good place, just compact your session with the /compact. I'm not going to do it right now, but I will do it in a little bit. You don't always have to do it. So it's going to read the algorithm with a formal algorithmic analysis and improvements. All right, so let's look at this plan. This is a multi-objective constrained assignment problem combining balanced KOA partitioning, bin packing with constraints. Each table has capacity constraints, multi-criteria optimization, simultaneously optimize gender balance, experience distribution and dealer coverage, formal problem definition. Okay, set of players, each player. So it's setting it up like a p-set from an algorithms class, which is kind of cool. Minimize these things, minimize gender imbalance, experience variance. Oh, the other thing that I want to make sure it does, so what I don't see here is it's just trying to optimize gender balance, experience distribution, and dealer coverage, but I wanted to also maximize the total number of total player interactions that are happening. I want to make sure that over the 3 games, every person is meeting as many new people as possible. So that's the other thing that I want to add to this. So minimize that, time complexity, issues with the current approach, optimizes experience first, then gender separately, can destroy the experience balance while fixing gender, no joint optimization of the objectives. Yep. Improved algorithmic design, stratified round robin with constraint-aware assignment, optimizing sequentially. Okay, data structures. Okay. Okay, so it feels like it just came up with like another implementation without maybe it thought about other implementations, but it seems like it hasn't considered other ones and chosen the best one. So what I'll say now is make sure we're also maximizing the total number of player interactions across the 3 games. Also consider other algorithmic approaches to this problem and choose the best one based on analysis. So you can see this is what I wrote. Make sure we're also maximizing total number of player interactions across the 3 games. Also consider other algorithmic approaches to this problem and choose the best one based on your analysis. So now it's going to think through that. It's going to update the plan and hopefully then we can update the algorithm. All right. This is a multi-objective constrained assignment problem or problem definition, target table size, player attributes, gender, experience, dealer qualified. For each game, J, partition, okay, capacity, coverage, completeness, and we want to maximize unique interactions, maximum possible, okay. Yep, that's right. It's the basically the combinations. So yeah, so now we have a maximization and a minimization. So we're minimizing the gender imbalance and the experience variance, and we're maximizing unique interactions. Current algorithm analysis. Okay. Issues with the current approach. Optimize experience first. Okay, we already know that. Algorithmic approaches, comparison, approach one, constraint, programming, SAT solving. Problem is a Booleans. Okay, variables. Verdict, too heavy for a CLI tool. NP hard, exponential worst case. Approach to integer linear programming. As linear programming with integer constraints. Dependencies, too heavy, good for theoretical analysis. Graph-based matching, Hungarian algorithm for games 2+, model as weighted by part-type matching. Good for diversity, needs modification for other constraints. Good for genetic algorithm simulated annealing, good for complex multi-objective, but overkill here. So actually, so when I told you that I had the issue in my last poker night and I updated the algorithm, I actually ended up doing simulated annealing. So what it's saying here is that, you know, this would be a good approach, but it seems like you don't really need that here. Like that's overkill. But I was like, whatever, like might as well just do that. So that's actually what I did. Approach 5, greedy construction with local search. And this is the current approach, which needs enhancement. Resolvable block design, combinatorial, too rigid for multi-straight constraint problem, hybrid, greedy, diversity, weighting, assignment, and it gave it a start. So it seems like this is the recommended approach. Construction. So, okay, so this is saying diversity aware seeding. So let's see why it chose this. Explicitly scores new pairs at each step, balance, maintenance, integrates gender experience into assignment score, checks dealer coverage before assignment, computational efficiency for Hungarian or exponential. So n squared versus n cubed. Okay. Pure Python, no solvers needed. Interoperability, each assignment decision can be explained. Improved algorithm design. Construction. Game 1 uses stratified construction for balance. Games 2+. Diversity weighted assignment to maximize new interactions. Okay. Not even going to read over that. Verification, expected metrics. Improved. So it's basically showing, like, for an example, what the current algorithm would do, improved algorithm should do, and what the theoretical maximum should be. Okay. And then here are some unit tests that it's going to run. Each player appears exactly once per game. Every table has at least one dealer. Yep, we want to make sure every player appears exactly once per game. Every table has at least one dealer. Yep. Each game adds significant new interactions. Yep. You want to maximize new interactions. Gender ratio per table within 20%, 25% of global. Okay. And then this is how you run it. This is what your expected output should be. Summary of changes. All right. So you can see I have a little bit of understanding of algorithms, but I'm definitely not an algorithms expert. But the fact that I just told Claude Code to, you know, argue with itself about what are the different approaches to solve this problem and then figure out the best one after it did the initial write-up, that's why Claude Code is so useful. I mean, not Claude Code specifically, just like LLM coding in general. I can just have it argue against itself about what the best approach to a problem is, and it'll get to a really good solution. Yeah, so this is the issue that I had, that I tried to fix last time as well. So it just said that basically, if there were overflow dealers, then all of the dealers are getting added to one table, and it's not maximizing the diversity of dealers over the total number of tables. So it's trying to fix that. Do you want to proceed? Yes. All right, so I just want to see how the V1 algorithm compares to the V2 algorithm on the other dimensions as well, not just the unique pairs. So let's look at that. Compare the V1 algorithm to V2, the V dimensions we care about, layer interactions, gender ratio per table, and experience level variance for each game. Make sure we're in plain mode again. So you can see a lot of what I'm doing is just validating its approach and making sure that, you know, considering all the possibilities. All right. So it's going to make a new script to compare the two algorithms. Okay. So player interactions, gender balance. So it's a little more gender balance. Experience mix is basically the same. So I keep seeing that it says there's a slight cost to gender balance. So I want to ask it a question. I want to say, are we equally weighting unique player interactions, gender balance, and experience diversity in this algorithm? No, they're not equally weighted. Let me check the current weights in the V2 algorithm. Current weights 2.0. Diversity is heavily prioritized, which explains why V2 wins on interactions, but loses slightly on gender balance. Would you like me to adjust the weights? Options, equal weights, balance all three equally. Yes, I want to balance all three dimensions. Make sure we're on plain mode, because this is an implementation task. This is not a question I'm asking. So I want to balance. So maybe it was taking into account that I didn't want an equal distribution or an equal weight given to all three of these dimensions. So I wanted to reevaluate which algorithm would make most sense given that I want equal weight to all three dimensions. So re-evaluate whether this algorithmic design is best given we want to equally weight these three dimensions and update the algorithm given your analysis only if necessary. I don't want it to do it just to do it. I want to make sure that it only does it given what I just asked it to do, which is I wanted to analyze whether this is still the best approach given that I want equal weights, and I only wanted to make changes if it decides this was not the best way to do it. So make sure plain mode is on, and let's go. All right, so it's saying that the current weights favor diversity, but that these metrics are on different scales, so just changing the numbers to 111 isn't actually equal weighting. So we're going to normalize them, it says in the algorithm. Okay. All right, let's see. But that's actually not what I wanted it to do. I wanted to totally reevaluate whether this approach, this algorithmic approach, is really the best one. So that's probably the next question that I'm going to ask. The gender balance got worse. I see the bug by normalization inverted things. The results are much better now. So it didn't increase the total number of unique player interactions as much, which is what I would expect because I wanted it to equally weigh all three dimensions, not weigh that one way more than the rest. We got more gender balance. Table and the experience mix is almost the same. Okay. So based on where this conversation is going, it seems to me that it's forgetting what the original objective was for this project. So what I'm probably going to do now is I will create a new session. So I'll go /new, and then I will give it my objective again, have it evaluate the algorithmic approach and tell it specifically that I want to equally weight these different dimensions, and then have it come up with like, what are the best algorithmic approaches that like an algorithm / data structures professor would want to use for this problem. And then if it thinks that it should be a different solution, I would probably update it there. So let's get that started. Okay, so let's do that. So let's go /new. So this will make a new session. It'll restart the context. And so now let's give it the objective again. So let's see if, let's go back here. Let's say my objective is the following. Make sure to evenly weight gender ratio, total number of player interactions across the three games, and the experience level of players per table in every game. Given my objective for this algorithm, evaluate the current algorithmic approach and compare other algorithmic approaches. So compare other algorithmic approaches that an algorithms / data structures expert would use for this problem statement. Make updates based on the recommended approach only if necessary. And then make sure you're on plain mode again, so shift tab. So we're on plain mode and let's run it. So you can see it's running two Explorer agents. what that means, so these are two subagents that it's running to basically understand the current code base. Each of these subagents has its own context window. So I think Anthropic's or the Opus context window is like 200,000 tokens. So my main session has 200,000 tokens, and then each of these subagents has 200,000 tokens context window each. And so that's really important because that will make sure that these subagents are performing optimally and it doesn't bloat my context window. So you can see that, they've used up a lot of tokens, but it's not actually impacting the main session much in terms of context bloat. The models get worse the more context they use. So you want to make sure that your context window is as clean as possible, as much as possible. The current algorithm is well suited for this problem. I found one bug in experience scoring. What would you like me to do? Fix the bug recommended, fix the experience fit calculation bug. This is a clear improvement with no trade-offs. All right, let's just do that. I don't want to make this too long, so let's just go with the recommended approach. All right, so I fixed the experience fit calculation. So the scoring now calculates the table's experience average after adding the player, not the current average. When a table is empty, it scores based on how close the player's experience is to the target mean instead of a neutral 0.5. The V2 greedy algorithm with stratification is well suited for this problem. More sophisticated approaches, genetic algorithm simulated annealing would be overkill for 20 to 100 players, which is the size of my games. The complexity runs in milliseconds at this scale. The interaction tracker elegantly handles multi-game diversity optimization. Okay. All right. So let's run this. So let's go to README. All right. So that is empty. So how do I run this project? How do I run this script? Oh yeah. So I also want it to automatically come up with the output CSV name. Like I want to give it a default. So create a default output CSV name that starts with the current date, like year, month, day, dash, seating chart, something like that. Okay. All right. So let's run this. So let's go. Remember, I'm using UVs. How do I run this project? You can see sometimes it forgets things like this. You, as the engineer, need to understand your project pretty well. All right, with UV, run it like this. Right, so let's go UV, run Python, seeding chart.py. The CSV is called test video raw luma, and I like 6 players per game, ideally. So let's see if we've installed dependencies. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so it ran 3 games with 6 players per table using diversity optimized algorithm, unique game interactions, seating chart, okay, game 1. So there's 9 tables with 6 players each. Let's make sure there's 9 tables for each game. Okay. Overall summary, 49 players, qualified dealers, there's 14 of them. Tables per game, there's 9. 17 females, 31 males, 1 non-binary. Experience breakdown. Okay, now let's look at the seating chart. Okay, all right, cool. All right, so that's our seating chart algorithm. All right, so the second part of this project is now that we have the algorithm that actually generates the seating chart and it optimizes for these things, we want to create a front end that actually displays that seating chart in my website's theme. And it needs to make sure that it's big enough for people to see from far away because people, obviously, like we have 50 people. So, people are sitting really far back. So we need to make sure that's big enough for people to see. We need to make sure that it follows my website's theme. That's basically it. Let me just put in here that I also want to include a timer. Include a timer. So timer on a separate page from the seating chart so we know when to switch games. Seating charts for the next game. All right, so let's make sure everything's there. So I want to make sure it follows my website's theme. I want to make sure that it's big enough for people to see from far away. I want to make sure that includes a timer. Oh, the other thing that I want to make sure is I want to use ShadCN UI components. So if you are not familiar, make sure to use ShadCN UI components. So if you're not familiar, ShadCN.io. So basically this is like a standardized open source UI component library with a bunch of components that are already built so that you don't have to build these from scratch. So let's see if I can show you some of these. Yeah. So for example, like you have accordions, you have alerts, avatars, calendars, checkboxes, all of these things. And these are pre-built. So you don't have to build these. And this is like super useful. So you can create different themes for these and you can make it follow your website's theme, but you don't have to build these components from scratch, which is super nice. So that's what I like to use generally. All right, so we make sure we use ShadCN UI components, include a timer, big enough for people to see from far away, needs to follow my website theme. So when I put this prompt in, I'm actually going to take a screenshot of my website and have it look at the screenshot when it's generating the front end. Make sure to use, actually, I'm going to do this outside of it. So I'm going to say, analyze the screenshot to see my current landing page theme. All right, so let's just take this prompt and let's go. All right, so let's make a new session. All right, so what do we want to do now? So we want to give it this prompt, make sure we're in plan mode. So Shift Tab, Command V. So I need to build a front end that I can display during poker night to show people where they sit. Let's just use the output CSV generated from at seating output.py, seating chart.py, seating chart.c 2026 as an example. Below are my requirements. Now let's go to the website and take a screenshot. So, SF Poker Club. I'm just going to include myself in there, but hopefully it can analyze that. Hey, like this guy's recording something. All right. And to paste an image, you just do Command V. And you can see that the image has been pasted now. And let's run it. So we're in plan mode. All right. The last thing that I forgot to mention is you should use the front end design skill. I'm not going to show you like how to download the skill right now. I can do that in a future video, but the front end design skill is a really useful skill when you're doing front end design. So I'll just add that. Make sure to use the front end dash design skill when doing all front end tasks. All right, let's go. So it's looking at the image, it's reading the files that I tagged, and then it's probably going to read through the entire project to make sure it knows what's going on. And then it'll start making the plan, and then it'll ask me to confirm whether I like the plan, and then it'll start implementing. Don't ask for WC commands. So when you do things like that, where I say, hey, like for a specific command, you don't need to ask me for permission, you'll notice that it made a .claude folder, and in settings, you'll see that this is now allowed. So WC all. So anything when it wants to run this WC command, it'll be allowed to do in this repository. So that's what settings.local.json does for this project. All right, so now it's going to ask me some questions to clarify. So how long should each poker game last? This sets the timer duration. So half an hour per game, but I want to make it configurable just in case. Let's just start with 30 minutes, actually. How should the CSV data be loaded into the app file upload? Yep. Should the seating chart automatically advance to the next game when the timer ends? No, manual control. Submit answers. All right. So here's the plan. So let's just do a quick high-level overview. Build a Next.js front end to display in poker seating charts during poker night, matching the SF Poker Club dark theme with a gold accent. Design theme background, black charcoal. Primary accent is gold. Casino poker aesthetic with decorative elements. So you can see I didn't tell it anything about the theme. It just looked at the image and came up with this itself. Pages, seating chart page and timer page, technical stack, create app, tailwind. So it's going to use ShadCN. These are the components that it's going to bring in. Okay. Implementation details, use Google Fonts, optimize for large displays, verification plan. Okay. And I just want to make sure that it uses the front end design skill. So I'll just do that. So make sure to use the front end design skill when implementing these front end tasks. Just to explicitly say that in the plan. So made that update and let's run it. All right. Yes, you can use the front end design skill without asking. So you can see as soon as I did that, it added this to the file, skill front end design. The plan is approved. It's going to make a to-do list, and then it's going to start running. All right, you can create the project. All right, this is the reason why I don't let it do commands on its own. So remove -rf is a very scary thing to let it do on its own. But okay, so it's removing poker -display, and it's going to create the project again. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's start the development server to test it. So you can see it's running a background task. The background task is basically, if you saw when it ran the server, like a local server, that's what's running in the background. And so it'll kill that, or you can manually kill that process once it's done. So give it permission. All right, so the background task is still running. So you can go /tasks. So npm run dev is still running. So let's kill that with K, escape. Oops. The dev server was stopped. It started again. Poker display npm run dev. The other thing that I want this project to do is to use Bun instead of npm. Bun is actually a company that Anthropic bought. And so, there's going to be a lot of probably native integrations going on in the future. Bun is basically just a faster package manager than npm. And there's some other features that, to be honest, I don't really know right now, like what it's useful for. But I do want this to use Bun. So I will ask it to update this project to use Bun. So let's do that. Update this project to use Bun. Do it in plan mode instead of npm. Remove npm artifacts, install Bun. Commands to run, change the poker display, remove node modules, Bun install. Okay, that's fine. Verification to confirm the app still works. All right, that's fine with me. Done. The project's been migrated from npm to Bun. All right, so Bun run dev start development server. Okay, let's do that. Let's kill the background task. So /tasks K to kill it, escape, and then let's go clear Bun run dev. Oh, whoops, you have to be inside that directory. So poker display Bun run dev. Why is that process still running? So this is a command you can use to kill a process. So you do kill 51709. So Bun run dev. Okay, so let's go. Okay, nice. So as a poker club. So one thing I already see is that it's not using the font that I want it to use for SF Poker Club, but okay, it looks nice overall. I don't like this scrolling, so I want to make sure that the entire thing is visible in the viewport so that I don't have to scroll to see anything. Timer. I don't like this crazy hue behind the timer, but it looks like the timer is working. Pause, you can reset, go back to seating chart. So let's upload the test CSV. Let's go to here. Here's our output CSV. Oh, that looks really cool. But you can see that it's showing the seating chart such that I have to scroll all the way down to see all of them. But this doesn't work for displaying onto a screen because I want to make sure that everyone can see all the tables at once. I want to make sure that that updates, but you can see, all right, game 2, game 3. Okay, so it looks like it is updating the people for every one of the games. So these are a couple things that I want to fix. All right, so let's go here and let's go make sure we're in plan mode. Shift tab here, updates to make. 1, make it so the blank page fills the full view port on a laptop so I can't scroll up and down. 2, make it so all tables can be seen at once in the viewport so that when I'm projecting it, all attendees can see every table. 3, update the title fonts. I'm forgetting the name of that font. Let's search it. So Google font casino. Let me just search my previous project. So let's go try poker. So this is the project CD poker seating display. What font is the title? Limelight. I remember that. Okay. Google font, Limelight. Yeah, so this is like a casino theme font. All right, so let's go back here. Let's kill this /quit to the Google font. Remove. I don't even know what you call that, but this, the haze, I guess. The haze behind the timer. It makes it hard to read. And then let's say use the front end design skill for all front end tasks. All right, so make it so the blank page fills the viewport on a laptop so I can scroll up and down, make it so all tables can be seen at once in the viewport so that when I'm projecting it, all attendees can see every table. Update the title fonts to the Limelight Google font. Okay. Remove the haze behind the timer. Okay. And I might just take a screenshot just so it knows what I'm talking about. See attached screenshot. All right, Command V to paste the image. And yeah, let's go. I'll kill this. And then we can test a new version. All tables visible in viewport, full viewport with no scroll, seating page. Update title font to Limelight, remove the timer haze or glow. Files to modify, verification. All right. All UI updates have been successfully implemented. Full viewport with no scroll. All tables, table cards, reduced, smaller padding, compact player rows, Limelight font, timer haze removed. So I'll just kill the background task, /tasks, kill it, escape, and I'll run it myself. Bun, run dev. God damn it. Run dev. Which port was that? 58044. Okay. Run dev. Okay. So as you can see now, if I scroll up and down, there's no scrolling. So it's all right here. Upload CSV. Okay. I don't like this. Now you can't even see all the people in the table. So obviously that needs to change. The timer. Okay. Nice. So it updated the fonts. That's good. Reset seating. Okay. And then when you go back, it also goes away. So these are a couple updates to make. So, all right. So make sure I'm in plan mode. All right. So let's see. Kill that. Updates to make. 1. Oh, I killed it. Okay. So when we uploaded the CSV. Oh, I should have. Okay. Let me take a screenshot of that. So clear bun run dev. I want to take a screenshot of this so you can see that not all the people are shown on each of the table cards. The table cards no longer show all the people. Analyze screenshot 2. Problems I found that need to be fixed. The table cards no longer show all the people. See a screenshot. When I go to the timer tab and then back to the seating chart is no longer present. Well, let me be a little more clear. So if I upload a seating chart CSV, navigate to the timer tab, and then back to the seating tab, the seating chart is no longer there. All right, make sure we're in plan mode and enter. I forgot to include the screenshot. So you can interrupt it by hitting escape and then Command B for pasting the image. Yeah, so it's doing a root cause analysis on each of those problems that I mentioned, which is good. Seeding data not persisting, uploading the CSV, navigating to the timer tab, returning, loses the data. The root cause is seeding data is stored in React component state, which resets. Add use effect to persist seeding data to local storage. Yep, that's what I want. I don't want to use a database. Implementation details, okay. And verification. All right, let's run it. Okay, the build passes successfully. You can test by uploading a CSV, navigating the timer, refreshing the page. All right, let's try this. Bun, run, dev. Well, let me make sure it's not running any background tasks. All right, so bun, run, dev. Let's go to localhost, right? Timer, upload CSV. I don't like that you have to scroll. So I want to update that again. I want to be able to, I want to see all people at a table without scrolling on the card, on the table card. See screenshot. Paste the image. Land mode. Okay, let's go to the timer page. Start this. Timer's running. Pause. Reset. Seating chart is still there. That's good. All right. Control C. Issue table cards. Show 5 to 6 players, but only display 3. The rest requires scrolling. The root cause. Make player rows more compact. Reduce header space. Okay. The other thing I want to make sure is that up to 8 people per table will be displayed. So make sure that up to 8 people per table can be displayed on each card without scrolling. The current spacing may exceed available card height in the 3-row grid. Okay. All right. Build passes. Okay, so let's run this. Bun run dev. Okay, this is weird. Hydration failed. Okay, so there's an error here. So this is a good place to use that other skill that I mentioned. I'm not going to go over like installing it right now. I'll probably do that in a future video, but this is basically the only other skill I use consistently. So error analysis. So I'm going to do /error analysis and I'll just paste that error that I got. Make sure we're in plan mode, Shift Tab and run it. So I don't even know what the error is. I'll just copy and paste the error and have it fix it. Okay, fixed the error. So let's go run dev. Okay, so that error is no longer showing up, but it's still having this like weird table display. So I think one reason actually is because it's trying to make it so that it shows up to three rows. I want it to basically dynamically, I want it to make sure that it takes up the entire viewport. So let's do that. And maybe I'll just use that error analysis tool again. So let's go /error. Let's just create a new session. So let's go /error analysis. I'll say the seating chart page cards should take up the full viewport. We should not hard code 3 rows because it leaves a lot of empty space in the viewport. As you can see in the screenshot, the cards still don't display all 6 players per table. Make sure we're in plan mode. Let's run it. Okay, hard-coded row count leaves empty viewport space. 9 tables, the grid is locked 3 rows. If there is extra viewport height, it's wasted as empty space below the cards. Issue 2, cards show only 5 players instead of 6. Each dot shows 6 players, but only 5 player rows are visible. This is height constraint issue. The card height isn't sufficient. The root cause is a combination of blah, blah, blah. The solution, okay. Implementation steps, files to modify, verification. All right, let's run it. Edit dynamic row calculation. Remove hard-coded 3-row limit. Okay. Let's try this. Run dev. Okay, so at least it's taking up more viewport space, but now the problem is that it's not like the people are not taking up as much space as possible within the cards, because obviously would be way too small for people to see when I project it. So that's the other issue that I will update. Let's see, timer is still working. Reset, go back, make sure they're still there. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go /error analysis. The name rows within each table card don't take up all the available space within the card. See screenshot. Command V and make sure we're in plan mode. Run. The player name rows within each table card don't expand to fill the available vertical space, leaving empty green space at the bottom of each card. Root cause. Individual player rows inside have fixed heights. Okay, solution, change the player list container from a simple div to a flex column, a flex box. Okay, option B. Option B is preferred. Implementation, files to modify. Okay, let's run it. Okay, each player row will now get an equal fraction of the available space, so it'll expand to fill the entire card instead of stacking at the top with empty space below. All right, so let's try this. Run dev, localhost. Okay, yeah, it's taking up more space. All right, so let's change the CSV to something that's in a different format. Okay, I want there to be like equal spacing between these name cards, but yeah, I mean, we're definitely in a better spot now. So change CSV, game 1, game 2, game 3. All right, nice. Timer, start, pause, reset, go back. They're still there. Okay. Use the front end design skill to update the player list to have equal spacing between the names and increase the name size as much possible to increase readability when I project this seating chart to the players. Seating chart on a screen. Make sure we're in plane mode. Okay, kill that. Okay, so it made some updates. Okay, the grid layout already ensures equal spacing. The larger typography and increased contrast will make more names readable from across the room when projected. Okay, let's take a look. Run dev. All right, yeah. So we updated the names to be bigger. We're taking up the entire viewport. This works. Let's go to timer. Let's play it. Pause, reset, go back, and it's all working now. All right, so the final thing is now we want to productionize this, right? Like right now it's running on localhost, but I can't just like, no one else can see this. I can only see this when it's running on my laptop, basically. If I end that terminal session and I go back here, the site can't be reached. So I'm going to use Vercel to productionize this. This doesn't even have a backend. This is a super simple project. So this is going to be really simple to do. So basically I'm going to create a new GitHub repo. So let's call it poker seating chart demo. Let's make it private. Okay. So let's add git here. So in git ignore, I want to add node modules. I want to ignore that, right? So git all git commit dash m initial commit git push. Let's make sure we're on main. All right. So we pushed the project to GitHub. So now let's go to Vercel, make a new project, poker seating chart demo, import that. The root directory is going to be poker display. So let's see, I'm deploying this project to Vercel. What build command do I need to use? Can I use the default Vercel build command? Keep in mind my project uses bun. Okay. So build command bun run build. Okay. Bun run build. And the install command should be bun install. So even when you're doing deployment, you can basically ask Claude Code to help you do the deployment. A lot of the times what I'll do is I'll say, hey, build me a step-by-step guide on how to deploy this project in a markdown file called deploy.md. I'll do something like that with plan mode enabled, and that'll literally build me a step-by-step guide to how to productionize the application. So that's super useful. I actually use that a lot for more complex projects. This is a very simple one again, but when you have backends, when I'm using Cloudflare, when I'm using things that I've never used before, like if I am hosting a backend on Modal, the first time I didn't know what I was doing, so I asked it to help me do a deployment, and it's super useful. All right, so deploy. Okay, awesome. So it's been deployed. Let's go to the dashboard. Here's the link. All right, so let's try it. So let's upload the CSV. Game 2, game 3, so it's all there. Timer works. reset, go back, it's still there. So this is a link that anyone can use now. So any of you guys can try going to this link and it's going to be there. So you can see this is how I use Claude Code to work on projects. Again, this is a very simple project that I did. There's no backend even required for this project, but this gives you an overview of how I vibe code projects. I'm going to do a lot more of these, but let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.